Hello, this is Paloma. I come back with this story the sky is telling, and maybe the story we can give back to the sky and to the earth. So we're coming from this week, last week, where we had this Venus star point and the new moon in Géminis. Right now we have Venus and Mercury going behind the sun, and I think little by little we're going to have more clarity into this that seems to me like the awakening of the heart consciousness, and more moments of big revelations will arise. I think it's about staying receptive and perhaps in the midst of these very accelerated times, pace ourselves. So this next week there is this friction in the air, which seems to me like an invitation to choose and also to find a path that unites, that honors our truth by including diversity and maybe even what looks like antagonism. Let me explain myself. I actually called this week in my monthly class the third way and cognitive dissonance, because we have so many squares this week, and squares are an aspect of tension, of discomfort, and discomfort is really the place where we grow. No, it takes us beyond our limited perception into unimaginable possibilities. It's a trigger for great creativity, but it's a tension and it's uncomfortable. Now it requires an important amount of self-regulation and just like stalking our own, being very aware of our own reactivity. And I guess it's just inviting us to cultivate more capacity of widening our view, our point of view, of embracing contradictions and allowing the emergence of this third way that transcends polarization and that builds bridges, weaves bridges. No? So I see this week as a creative challenge where some limitations might arise as an invitation to cultivate a bigger vision, wit, sensibility, intuition, and above all, neutrality. Mars just entered Tauro, and we have this very mutable energy in the sky, and yet Tauro is a fixed energy. So this is the first contrast. I think the beauty of this is that Mars can say, okay, great, you have so many ideas and possibilities in your mind, let's give this a sustainable pace. You know, we can actually create a stability if we walk with consistency, and we can provide ourselves with some security amongst a time that is very just changeable. No. From my point of view, this is beautiful because it brings us back into our bodies, and it can show us that we were having like a different velocity, a different pace between our minds and our bodies, and that we probably need to find a more coherent way of walking or talk. So as soon as Mars enters Taurus, he creates this extreme tension with Pluto in Aquarius. And these are both very powerful planets. They're actually quite related. They both work with Scorpio energy. So in truth, there is a frequency that they share, but it presents itself now through a tension from Tauro and Aquario. These are fixed signs, so it can feel like extreme intensity and stubbornness as well. No, so yes, it can bring frustration, but it's also an opportunity to explore what it means to you today, right here and right now, to own your power without the need of violence, to affirm yourself without the need of aggression, yet through assertion, you know. So it might feel like a very strong need to free yourselves from perceived or real limitations to what we desire, because there's something subversive in this energy, and it's potentially violent, as I said, but in a higher expression. I think it's an opportunity to claim genuine personal power. We can project this into the world and look at it in our relationships or even in the world scenario, but I think the very interesting exercise is to work with this inside, into feeling the dissonance inside ourselves and trying to find this third path that weaves bridges within ourselves, no? Because there is looking into expectations, pretensions, and how we are exercising our will and our power here. It's a very sensual energy as well. It's sexual energy, which is like palpitating the creative energy of the universe, with a very big calling towards authenticity. So again, this is a sky that is claiming truth. Okay, so there's also squares to Saturn. This usually appears like a limitation or something that slows processes down, so that we can actually become truly committed and responsible. It's again radical honesty, and we are very restless with all this Gemini energy in the sky, and Saturn here invites us to ground ourselves, to open our intuitive listening. It's actually about silence to me. So we can actually respond for something greater and bigger than the immediate gratification. It's in Pisces, so it's really a soul calling for us to not forget or lose sight of the big mission, to elaborate this without leaving so many loose ends, in this new story and this new narrative that we were talking about last week. So integrity, impeccability, decision, these are important things throughout these days. These squares to Saturn are really honing our inner authority through patience and humility. Mercury will square Saturn on the 12th, and then on the 13th we have the quarter crescent moon in Virgo. And this is also a square between the sun and the moon, So about that seed from last week, we are confronted with a need for action through Virgo, which is going to call us into order. It's really about organizing our energies, our bodies, in attunement with natural rhythms, with organic rhythms. And then we're going to have Mercury joining the Sun in this Cassimi of Mercury in Géminis again. So it looks like we're going to have a lot to say, a lot to announce, a lot to sing about to the world, because this is a full Mercury. It's like a climax in the cycles of Mercury towards this illuminated, conscient use of our words. So it's also looking into the purpose of our creation through the power of our minds and expressions. And to end the week, we're going to move from the squares to Saturn into the squares to Neptune in Pisces. And usually I hear like astrologers speak of this as a moment of confusion. In fact, I think it's more about integrating intellect and intuition. It's like the balancing the hemispheres of our brain, and that's where the bridge is built and found. So I would call it more like a go beyond illusion, beyond fantasy, even beyond confusion, so you can have a responsible use of your intuition, your sensibility, your connection, in complicity with the virtuous virtuosism of your intellect, of your mind. And through that alliance, discern the message, discern the truth, and dream the dream by naming it and creating it through actions. Beyond illusion really means here and now. It requires embodiment. It requires reality. And I think that's the beauty of having Mars in Tauro right now. So these days present a tension, but there's also grace, as always. Now, Chiron, the wounded healer, is weaving these beautiful dialogues with the Sun and Mercury. They're very proactive, and it's permeating with compassion, with healing, with medicine, our story. So if we choose to vibrate in this potential, this week we can speak with an open heart and with great courage. We can go beyond extreme positions towards finding this middle path, this third path, a path that unites, the path of the heart, No? So that's it. That's what I have for this week. I wish we find creative outlets for this, which is intense energy, through our bodies, through creativity, as I said, through inner alchemy, and also humor. So we can direct our action with beauty, with inspiration, and with joyful responsibility. We are being invited by all this Gemini energy to also enter the realm of a perspective that is flexible, and the recreative fluidity of the wind. So may we also commune with this. And thank you, as always, for your time, for your attention, for your comments. Blessings.